In my house, weeknights are hectic, and I have a feeling you can all relate. That's why it's important, if you want to eat well all week long, to plan ahead. Today, I'm going to show you 3 of my very favorite make-ahead meal ideas that can all be made in a big batch on the weekend and then frozen. So you have go-to dinners for those busy weeknights where you just don't feel like cooking. Today, I'm going to show you my spinach-stuffed pasta shells, my easy black bean and sweet potato enchiladas, and finally, my twice-baked broccoli and cheddar potatoes. These things are amazing. All right, let's get started with my spinach-stuffed pasta shells. For this recipe, I'm getting started with a big pot of boiling water on the stove, and to that, I'm going to add my large pasta shells. Now, I'm using these nice oversized pasta shells because we want to leave lots of room for stuffing. I'm also going to undercook my pasta shells by about a minute to make sure they hold together while I'm stuffing them. Once my shells are cooked, I'm going to drain them in a colander and run them under some cold water. This way, we're going to cool them down to the touch and stop the cooking process so they don't get any softer. Then I'm going to set my pasta shells aside and get started on my spinach. So I've got a skillet on the stove heating up, and to that I'm going to add some olive oil and some minced garlic. As soon as that garlic becomes fragrant, I'm going to start piling in my baby spinach. Now, I'm using an entire large container of baby spinach in this recipe because it's all going to wilt down to almost nothing. I'm simply going to stir my spinach until it's completely wilted, and then I'm going to allow it to cool to the touch. Next, I'm going to finely chop it so that it is ready for my filling. Now we're going to get started on our filling. I've got some ricotta cheese standing by in a large mixing bowl, and to that I'm going to add 2 eggs. I'm going to whisk the cheese and the eggs together until they are totally smooth, and then I'm going to start building in some flavor. So I'm starting with some freshly grated Parmesan, and to that I'm going to add some nice dried spices. So I've got some dried parsley, some dried oregano, and some dried basil going into my bowl. I'm going to finish this with some salt and pepper and give it a good stir. Next, I'm going to add my finely chopped spinach and stir it all until it's well combined. Now it's time to get stuffing. Now, I'm going to be assembling my shells in a casserole dish, but you could also use those aluminum baking dishes that you can buy at your local big box store. Those will work just as well. To get started, I'm simply going to pour a little bit of my tomato sauce into the bottom of my casserole dish in an even layer. Next, I'm going to stuff each of my shells with a tablespoon or 2 of this amazing cheese filling, and then just arrange each of my stuffed shells on top of the tomato sauce. If you're finding your shells are getting a little sticky, all you need to do is rub a little olive oil on your hands. That will make them easier to work with. Once all of my shells are arranged in my baking dish, I'm simply going to top them with a little more tomato sauce and some shredded mozzarella cheese. Now you have 2 options. You can either bake this baby as is at 375 for about a half an hour, or you can freeze it. All you need to do is wrap it in foil and into the freezer it goes. It will last for up to 3 months. When it comes to cooking it, you can either let it thaw in the refrigerator overnight, or you can cook it from frozen, but you'll have to leave some additional time. All of the cooking instructions are available in the description box below. Just click the Show More button. Once these beauties are cooked, they are bubbly, ooey gooey, and delicious. The perfect weeknight meal. All right, so next up, we've got my easy black bean and sweet potato enchiladas. Now, I call these my easy enchiladas because instead of making homemade enchilada sauce, I'm actually cheating a little with some jarred salsa. You can totally use enchilada sauce in this recipe if you wanted to, but I had jarred salsa on hand, so that's how I'm rolling. For this recipe, I am getting started with a large sweet potato that I've just peeled and chopped. I'm going to toss it with a little olive oil and some salt and pepper, and then pour it onto a baking sheet. Into the oven it goes at 375 for about 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, I'm going to add some red bell pepper and some chopped red onion. Toss all of these together to make sure everything cooks evenly, and then put them back in the oven for another 15 minutes. Once they're ready, they'll be soft and slightly caramelized and have a whole lot of beautiful flavor. I'm going to let my yummy sweet potato mixture cool a little, and to that I'm going to add some cooked rice. This is a great way to use leftover rice. And some black beans that I've just rinsed and drained. I'm also going to add a little bit of my jarred salsa. I don't have to add any fancy spices or anything because the salsa already has so much tasty flavor. I'm going to stir all of this yumminess together and then set it aside while I prepare my casserole dish. All I'm going to do is pour a nice even layer of salsa into the bottom of my dish. Again, you could use enchilada sauce here, that would work just as well. And then I'm going to get to wrapping up my enchiladas. For these enchiladas, I'm using corn tortillas, but you could absolutely use wheat tortillas if that's what you prefer. Totally your call. I find it's really helpful though to warm up your tortillas before you start rolling your enchiladas because otherwise they do tend to crack a little. So I've simply heated my tortillas up in the oven, and now it's just a matter of scooping a couple tablespoons of this yummy filling into the center of each tortilla, topping it with a little shredded cheddar, and then rolling it up. All I'm going to do is place each roll seam side down into my salsa. I'm going to keep rolling until my dish is full, and then I'm going to top this with even more yummy salsa and a good helping of shredded cheddar. Now, if you're making this recipe ahead, this is the perfect time to wrap it in foil and pop it into the freezer. When it comes time to put these in the oven, it's really important to cook them with the foil on so your cheese doesn't get too burnt. All you'll want to do is take the foil off in the last 10 minutes of cooking and you'll end up with perfect enchiladas every time. When they're ready, I like to finish them off with a little bit of fresh sour cream and some chopped green onion. Finally today, I'm going to show you my twice-baked broccoli and cheddar potatoes. What I love about these potatoes is just how versatile they are. Now I'm stuffing them with broccoli and cheddar because I wanted to keep them meatless, but you could also add some cooked chicken or some cooked bacon to these. That would be just as delicious. For this recipe, we're going to get started by baking up some russet potatoes. All I've done is wash my potatoes really well under some running water with a vegetable brush. That way we don't have to remove the skin because it's really, really delicious. Now that our potatoes are washed, all we're going to do is rub them with a little bit of olive oil, some salt, and then poke a few holes in them using the tines of a fork. I'm simply going to bake them at 425 for about an hour or until they're cooked through. You'll want to flip them once during cooking to make sure they brown evenly on all sides. Once they're done, you want to let them cool for at least 15 to 20 minutes or until they're cool enough to handle. Next, we are simply going to cut each potato in half and scoop out all of the potato goodness. You want to leave your skins perfectly intact because we're going to be returning all of this potato yumminess to those skins shortly. Now that I've scooped out my cooked potato, I'm going to mash it with some salt and pepper and some sour cream. Once your potatoes are mashed, you can really add any type of filling you like. In this case, I'm using some broccoli florets that I've lightly steamed and some shredded cheddar. I'm going to stir this all together and then scoop it back into my beautiful potato skins. Finish these off with a little more shredded cheese, and now you have two options. You can either put them back in the oven right away and cook them until they're golden, or you can put them in the freezer and let them freeze for between 20 and 30 minutes. I always freeze them a little while before I wrap them because it makes them a lot easier to work with. Wrap each potato individually in some aluminum foil and then put them in a zipper bag. These will last in the freezer for up to 3 months. When it comes time to cook them, you have two options. You can either bake them in the oven in the aluminum foil or remove the foil and cook them in the microwave. Totally up to you. I really hope you'll give these tasty make-ahead meal recipes a try and that they make your weeknights a little easier. If you do give them a try, be sure to tweet or Instagram me a photo because you know I love seeing what you're coming up with in your very own kitchens. And don't forget that our amazing fundraiser for Free the Children is still going on and there's still time to donate. We are trying to raise $25,000 to build a school garden for a community in need, but we can't do it alone. We need your help. So be sure to donate generously. All the details are in the description box below. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to The Domestic Geek because there is lots more deliciousness where this came from.